Hey AfterBuzzers, we're so excited to talk about Sun Records Episode 2, Out of the Groove, so stick around.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Hello AfterBuzzers!
Starting it out nice and slow for you tonight.
With some Eddie Arnold. We are loving... Yes. Sing it,
Don't mind
Tamra.
if I yodel for a minute. Oh, I'm bottoming out here.
Well, guys, thank you guys so much for joining us again. I'm not alone today. I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Tamra Brown. Tamra Brown, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Brown Tamra, or you can find me on, let's say, YouTube at Hey Tamra.
Perfect. And I'm Allie Nasta. You can find me on Twitter at Allie Nasta or on Instagram at Allie Girl. And so we've got some Eddie Arnold on, as we introduced you guys to, which we kind of see him a little bit with the Colonel getting his business swag on in order to sell some records. But before we get just into...
Already taken his 25%, the Colonel.
Yes, loving it so much. He is definitely a businessman. Before we get into all of these different characters and people and kind of their bios, what are your thoughts so far on the show overall? Obviously, it's only episode 2, but we didn't get to hear your thoughts on episode 1.
Only episode 2. I feel like we're still in the we're still setting the table. We're still just getting everybody in place. I think right now they're still doing, like, for anybody who's not familiar with Sun Records or haven't seen the millions of movies about Johnny Cash's life and Elvis's life and even Jerry Lee Lewis's life, who hasn't seen Great Balls of Fire or Walk the Line or, every movie, this isn't new territory, but maybe we're, still having to introduce who these people are to, anybody who might not know about it. So I feel like we're still in those, like, introductory phases of, explaining, how the record label got started and who everybody is in place.
Yeah, and I'm actually, me personally, I'm loving that introductory phase because there are some of the artists that I didn't necessarily know or know too much about. Obviously, I heard the names, like, I've heard Jerry Lee Lewis, sorry, and I've heard, like, I actually have never heard of Eddie Arnold, so I had to look up Eddie Arnold to figure out who he was, to be like, is this someone that is scripted into this show, or is it a real artist? And obviously, that is my poor knowledge, so please, it's not anything about the show, it's just my poor knowledge on not knowing who Eddie Arnold was.
I don't think so far anybody's not in, the only character that I had thought, we had talked before the show, and the only character that I had thought was fictional was Miriam, and you explained to me that she was actually, part of, the beginning success of Sun, so...
and I definitely was researching, and it's made me research all of these characters and kind of their backstories, which I guess we can jump into the first person that I kind of wanted to talk about was Johnny Cash, who's played by Kevin Fontaine, and I think he's doing a phenomenal job of capturing Johnny, especially because I saw the movie Walk the Line. I don't know about you. Have you seen it?
Sure.
So that was kind of where I got my first introduction to Johnny Cash, and not the music, but just his backstory and kind of who he was as a person. And so far, I think that we're getting a really great glimpse of who he was before Walk the Line kind of introduced us, because it's before he got famous, and I feel like that movie just kind of started off when he was doing music and all of that. So how do you feel about kind of getting introduced to him as a teenager, leaving for war, all of that, before we kind of get to introduce to the character of the artist Johnny Cash?
Yeah, I think so far it's good. We knew he went to Europe while he was in the military. I knew that Vivian was his first wife. Didn't realize that they were separated for 3 years while he was in the service.
Right.
That part I didn't know. Will probably come into play his tumultuous relationship with his dad at some point. And, they call him JR in this episode because, that's what people he grew up with called him. And, I think it's doing a good job.
Definitely. And what I found really great, too, was I looked back to see, obviously I knew Vivian was his wife, but I didn't know their history and that they were separated for the 3 years, and they knew each other for 3 weeks. He went to war, and they sent love letters to each other throughout the whole 3 years.
Yeah.
Could you even imagine?
It sounds crazy now, but at that time, that wasn't uncommon. Like, so many people, especially, like, you know, the way one of his buddies said, like, I'm shipping out, you know, something like, I'm gonna make it happen tonight because I'm shipping out tomorrow. You know, that was a common thing for a time when there was still a draft, and you know, most American men were in the military. I wouldn't say most, but a large portion, far more than now. You know, that was the reality of life. So I feel like that happened. You know, it wasn't uncommon. Now it seems crazy to do that. But also you know, now it's also kind of impossible because you could, you know, FaceTime every day.
And it just like wouldn't be as difficult. But yeah, I thought that was such a great part of their love story that I hadn't known before the show, which that's something that I'm loving, is just getting all those little like itty bitty pieces of information that I necessarily wouldn't have known before. So then I'm looking it up, trying to figure out if it's real, and it clearly all is so far.
But it's good too that I hope that in this, because Walk the Line and some other biographical stuff on Johnny Cash has kind of vilified Vivian Cash a little bit, and I bet, like, you know, Roseanne Cash and their kids probably want to have her seen in a more positive light. So I hope this, you know, I bet that's what their plan is. You know, she was pleasant in this episode. They'll have her character, you know, be...
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a great point, because we only saw her, you know, through the stages of their divorce almost, I feel like, in Walk the Line.
And she was just, like, nagging him and didn't want him to pursue his career and stuff like that. So, of course, she came off as, like...
Yeah, but meanwhile, she had waited 3 years to, like, have finally fallen in love with this man. So, I mean...
So it's good to see that side of her now.
It is. And you give her a lot of credit, too, for knowing, I mean, this was true love from what they knew and what I'm watching. So great. But going into other loves, some not as good as others, which Marion is sleeping with Sam Phillips, which is kind of causing this awkward tension between her and Becky, his actual wife, where, I mean, I'm feeling bad for Becky. How do you feel about this situation?
I mean, you feel sorry for the person that's cheated on. I'd say that's a pretty common emotion. But I also I feel like this is a kind of a trope. Like, I was expecting that to happen because, you know, if you work together, especially in that a woman that had that much say-so in that era, like, it seems pretty natural that the characters would have a little affair.
Fling.
So, yeah.
Which it kind of seems more like a fling. We were introduced that they had been doing this in Nashville as well. It wasn't just a one-night thing. It's something that they've kind of been doing for a while. So what I thought was kind of something I wanted to look back at and maybe do some more research on is how did Sam and Becky's relationship start? Because from what I'm seeing, it doesn't seem like they have anything in common. She wants to just have a family. He has these dreams he wants to chase after. He's more unconventional than she is. So I'm just kind of wondering how they fell in love. I mean, what did you think? I mean, when Becky, she's constantly like, I don't understand what you're doing, but it's fine, do it. But then we need to talk about what we're doing for our child, which it is, Sam kind of isn't really in that family mode. Yeah,
like you said, I'd like to know the reality of that relationship, because we see in so many other stories, not just about these specific musicians, but it's also, you always see the sort of the nagging wife character that doesn't want her amazingly creative husband to pursue his art because he's so forward thinking that she just doesn't get it. And I guess just a little bit from a feminist perspective, I'm like, girl, get your life too, you know, like she can. So I'm rooting for her, but also, like, I mean, I'm sympathizing with her, but I'm also rooting for this character to maybe not just be based around him. Well, all we know about her is her love for him. She's worried where he is. Oh, he just got home. She wants to make sure he's okay. Oh, now what this about? Like, hey, what about Becky?
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's what I'd love to know a little bit more of her backstory, which, like I said, I mean, it's egging me to do all this research after the show. But just kind of jumping into Sam's character, we see that he's not only the owner of this record company, he's a producer, he's an artist himself. He has all of these different dynamic characteristics, which it's crazy because you can see his kind of villainous side to him, but at the same time you can't help but feel some sort of compassion because he's so I don't know how to explain it, but he's just so
I mean, it's pretty revolutionary, honestly, for a white man in the South to have grabbed on to R&B the way that he did in that era. So that is you know, that's kudos to him and Elvis for, you know, grabbing onto that. Yeah, you know, I mean, at the same time, other arguments could be made about that come up a lot in modern conversations about, you know, whatever. I won't get into that, but you know, he is a pioneer. I mean, he's a pioneer. So for rockabilly music, so it's great that, you know, they're always a little bit of the devil and angel in both of them.
Exactly. And I mean, just to speak about Chad Michael Murray's performance so far, I think he's doing a phenomenal job. And I mentioned this in the first episode of our after show, just mentioning how I've seen him in so many different characters, and he's usually just this like Prince Charming character. So it's really great to see this other side of him and his other artistic ability, because I think the way he's capturing the twang of just the voice is blowing my mind. It just, every time I'm watching each one of these characters, I mean, they're all these actors and actresses. I think they've gotten like the best like it's just, they're all so amazing. I sit there and watch and I'm so convinced, and we were talking about this before. I mean, how do you feel about the performances and how they're kind of depicting each character?
Yeah, I think they do a great job so far.
Yeah. And I mean, Jerry Lee Lewis, when he started like just talking, I had been looking at them on like social media and stuff and just kind of doing some precursor research before. And I think they're English. So it was really interesting.
Actors?
Yeah. The actor, sorry. So I think that it was really great to hear them and this twang. I'm like, you guys are blowing my mind. You're so amazing. But I mean, we're just seeing the beginning of Jerry Lee Lewis's character, which that's going to be so cool to kind of see how that gets started.
Yeah. And I'm really excited to see. I hope they keep Jimmy Swaggart in it, because, you know, his story, helping Jerry Lee Lewis sort of hone his devil music, you know, and then go on to be a television evangelist. Like, that was a pleasant surprise in this episode. I'm looking forward to seeing more of Jimmy Swaggart.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a great point that you made, because it kind of was like he was his mentor. He kept kind of telling him and giving him the bits and pieces that he needed in order to find his art and to find what he's good at. So I mean, we only saw a really small glimpse of that. So hopefully we'll see more of those characters.
Because there's a fine line, you know, they're both raised in such a religious community and a religious background and everything like that. And, you know, again, with the reality of that time is like this music was so, you know, secular, and it was just seen as like, you don't want to get into that rock and roll and you don't want to, you know, tarnish church music and stuff like that. So it's like, it's a fine line that they're walking between being pious but also coming, you know, like playing with new music styles.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of a little bit of new music styles, is Elvis. We see him going against his family's word and going against even someone. He's fighting with the temptations of even, okay, there's a girl that I like and I might not possibly get her again, but I'm still going to do what I want to do. I'm still going to go to the church and I'm going to listen to the music and I'm going to sing with them. And I think that's great to kind of know that was Elvis's. He's like, I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I'm going to do what I think is right. And what I think the music should be like produced by or produced as.
Now, Elvis is from Tupelo, Mississippi. So those scenes are all in Mississippi.
Oh,
right? So
I'm
trying, because these aren't, and Jerry Lee's in Louisiana.
Right.
These are all like
different. They're different stories pieced together.
Yeah, they're not. They're all it's gonna sliding doors a little bit. They're gonna come together. So I was just trying to remind myself, like, oh, Elvis isn't going to walk into Sun Records in a second. Like,
no, yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I think I had remembered that in the first episode. In this episode, that totally washed out of my mind. So I'm so glad you brought that up. I think we feel like we need a map. Like, okay, this is where everybody is. They're not near each other. And I think it was a little hard because the last preview, we saw a little bit of a preview of the whole season.
Yes, which I can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah. We'll get into that just a bit, just to kind of go, we see Elvis. I mean, we didn't get too much of him this episode. We got a little bit more on the last one. But we see Sam Phillips in the studio really honing on his art, and we have Joe Bahari, who's played by Mike Horton, and he really was kind of confused at first that, why are you messing with my time? This is my studio time. Let them record and let us get out.
Yeah, he's kind of a bad guy in this episode.
Yeah.
There was the thing with the BB King's contract too, and so it's like, yeah, it's always fun to make the villainous record producer. Like, it's always such a fun character, but yeah.
And you kind of saw him flirting with Marion in the beginning, and she was just not having any of it. She's like, okay, cool, let's just get this going, and you can stop talking to me now. But also, he had made a comment to Sam Phillips later when he left, when he was trying to sell him on the Bebop Boy, and he said, you keep on slugging. And I felt like that's going to come back and bite him, and that's going to be an altercation between Sam Phillips and Joe Bahari, kind of being like, well, I kept slugging, and look at all the people that I've made happen.
Right.
Was there something that you wanted to say?
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I wrote that down too, that line. Because, he said it's too raw. The part where, Sam gave him the record
Of the Bebop Boy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and he said it's too raw.
Yeah. And then he just kind of like smirked and was just like, here's your track, I'll see you later kind of altercation. And I thought it was great that when he said you keep slugging, I looked at that and was like, okay, this is definitely Sam Phillips in his mind is like a Bruin. Okay, I know who you are now. And he had a great idea, which Dewey Phillips, the radio host, is the one that introduced them to each other. And at first, I obviously didn't know too much of the back history, but I thought Dewey Phillips and him were related somehow, because they all were saying cuz, which obviously it's a slang word. It's not necessarily, but I looked up. They're not related. They just were friends, and they kind of helped each other out.
Yeah. And this is back in the time where, DJs really had an impact on music and what became popular records. Like, certain DJs had the power to, make an artist more popular, or some of them were more under the thumb of a certain label or a certain manager or something like that. But it's kind of like a sad lost art, because radio has lost its importance, and so cultural importance, so that who is the person that can backdoor slide a song into the mainstream, that just doesn't really happen anymore.
I feel like if that did happen, there'd be someone would be let go. I don't feel like that would slide as much as it did back in these days. I mean,
it would be neat if there was like some sort of analogous to what the DJ was then, to who's the person that you want to secretly slide a record into their hands, because maybe they can do you a solid.
And we saw that happen with Eddie Arnold. He was like, play this every day at 2:10 and we will make sure this happens, which we see a really good glimpse of how Colonel is as a businessman and how he's going to be for all of these other artists. So
very much a carny man, Colonel. Like, he knew how to wheel and deal.
Exactly.
And swindle people.
And Eddie was like, we'll just take the Columbia deal. He's like, there is no deal. That can't happen. Come on, let's do this. And it was cool to see the introduction of him just trying to sell off dancing chickens in the beginning at the carnival. So, and then he becomes this great businessman and manager.
And not really a colonel.
Yeah.
He was named colonel by the governor of, I think it was the governor of Louisiana.
Oh,
because
really?
he was in the Louisiana militia. Which is, not official military, but he was named an honorary colonel, and then the nickname always stuck.
Oh, so, that's a fun fact.
Yeah, so he's, what a cool nickname, but He was in the Army, but and he also wasn't an American citizen when he was in the Army because he was born in the Netherlands.
I did read on that, which was really. I think there was something else I read too, which I can't remember right now. But yeah, it's really interesting to see how that all kind of pans together. But so far, I mean, I feel like I'm learning so much more about this era, and it's making me appreciate the music even more. There's a playlist on iTunes radio, and it's just oldies, and you can play it anytime. And I've been listening to it lately, and it's been helping me kind of just like correlate the two and just kind of watch the history and then listen to the music. And I feel like it means so much more. Yeah. Call me cheesy or corny, but I feel like it does, because there's some things that I didn't necessarily know, and we're only 2 episodes in, so I might be getting ahead of myself. But I think it's...
go for it. Get it, girl. Get into it.
I mean, I am, and I just feel like these actors are doing such a great deal of making these stories come to life and making these people who were known in like all over the world as household names, and I feel like they really are bringing them into such a great light as actors.
Well, known in household names later on.
Yes.
Elvis he had the most earliest success, but it was a while until at least 10 years before anybody like Johnny Cash or Jerry Lee Lewis was a household name. Yeah. But now, of course, they're just interwoven into the fabric of American music. So.
Yeah. Yes, they definitely are. But was there something that you mentioned? You said you wanted to get into it later. I forget what it was.
Well, when we talk about the upcoming episodes.
Or like predictions. Well, I guess, I mean, we kind of...
I can bring it up now.
Yeah, you can bring it up now.
I was really excited to see that Ike Turner is coming into the next episode, because what a meaty character. What an evil but awesome... Like, I'm such a big fan of Ike and Tina, and I'm excited to see, the crossover we have here. But also, he was... obviously not a good man. So this is just going to be like a really meaty character. I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, you'll have to forgive me because I'm going to have to do some more research because I'm not sure if I quite know who he is.
Well, Tina Turner was with Ike Turner through the 50s and 60s had Ike and Tina Review, and Tina was the lead singer, and then there were the Ikettes as the backup singers.
Okay.
And this is like, the songs, like Proud Mary, a lot of left a good job in the city, working for a man every night and day.
I do know that. Okay.
But Ike and Tina were married, and then she suffered a lot of domestic abuse. He was a wife beater.
Okay.
For years and years and years and years. But he was also like, before that, like, he always cheated on whatever woman he was previously with, with the next one that came along and stuff like that. But, it's a really interesting story.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's really cool to see who all ends up becoming Ikettes, because his backup singers all have like different interesting careers of their own. And it's just like that's what's fun about this show, is that I just like can't wait to see, kind of like how we said, like I'm not sure if any of the characters are actually if there's going to be a fictional character in this show, because everybody seems to have a real history with it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of I want to see more of the obscure artists of Sun Records. We want to see some Carl Perkins. I doubt they're going to get it. There's a studio. Charlie Feathers was a studio musician for Sun Records, but he never really. He had like a couple songs with Sun, but they never. His bigger hits, he had moved on to another label because Sam Phillips wasn't really into him. But I want to see, I'm really looking forward to different artists and seeing all the characters that are going to come into play.
I totally agree. And with that being said, I guess we should get into some predictions, which I feel like it's a little hard doing some predictions.
Well, it's
but I guess it's more like weird. What we're gonna see next.
It's weird with a show that's a true story to come up with predictions. Like, I predict that Johnny Cash will meet June Carter, and
in 3 episodes. No, I feel like it's just one of those things where maybe we can just guess what's going to happen next and what characters they might introduce to us. Because like we said, we're not really sure. Like I'm assuming all of this is based off of biographical things, and there's going to be very minimal scripted, like people thrown in there for the script. So maybe it's just, maybe we change predictions more to who we would like to see in the next episode.
I tell you what I'd like.
What?
Let's get Jerry Lee Lewis in the studio.
Yes.
Still
Yes,
alive.
that would be amazing. Oh, still alive. I was like, I mean, hey, Christian Lees and Jonah
No,
Lees.
real Jerry Lee Lewis. He's still alive. He's like 90. He's like 96.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
That would never-
would be
it would
epic.
never
It would never
happen,
happen, but that would be epic. But I guess maybe I want to see more of. I don't even know. I guess I just want to see more of everybody. We've only had 2 episodes to kind of see a little bit of history, but I can only imagine how much further that's going to take us, and just kind of seeing the little intricate things that happen that they don't necessarily talk about.
Yeah. We're going to be introduced to Chess, the owner of Chess Records. Are we going to, the other Memphis label is Stax. I wonder if we're going to come across the brother and sister team that started up Stax Volt. There's a lot of music, it's a really great, it's like watching the History Channel on like music of the 50s.
Yeah.
In the 60s, only it's like a narrative. So it's just, yeah, I can't wait to see. I know Chess is coming up, and can't wait to see who else pops in.
I know, it's gonna be fun.
Let me see. Who do you want to see?
I feel like I don't even know who I want to see yet, because I just need to go back, and I know I'm the kind of person too where there's a lot of songs, and I grew up loving the oldies and like 50s and 60s music. My mom had this oldies CD that I just listened to on repeat, and there was 10 songs that I would listen to, and I can't even think of them right now, but just like, this is the kind of music that it was. And so I didn't even know, some of them I didn't know the names of them, but I would hear the music and I would just know every single word.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's going to be how this show goes for me. It's going to be very surprising and exciting. So like, I know who that is, but it's
Awesome.
going to show me the history a little bit more.
Cool.
Which,
I think that's what the purpose of the show is.
Yeah, it's just
to introduce it to a younger generation.
exactly.
And a generation who honestly only is familiar in a lot of ways, only familiar with these people through blockbuster movies and stuff like that. So,
Exactly.
So yeah, it's hopefully we need I'd love to have more of the I want them to play more of the music, not like through the story, but like Quentin Tarantino uses a lot of Sun music in his features and stuff like that. Like I think this type of music just adds thematically, just through transitions. Let's throw in some Charlie Feathers, throw in some Carl Perkins, throw in some Johnny Carroll. I think he was on Sun. I'm pretty sure. But like some of these like artists that are not, you can hear Great Balls of Fire a million times, but let's hear more of the like obscure ones and introduce those to the masses. So.
I'm wondering if I think I read something about when Drake Milligan had mentioned something about one of the Elvis songs. I'm not sure if they're allowed to. There's certain songs that they're not allowed to air.
I bet. Yeah.
So I think there's
serious
certain.
licensing. But again, that's why that's another reason to play the obscure ones, because they're a lot easier to license.
That's true. No, that would be great. I mean, even just having that little scene with BB King and Sam Phillips kind of saying, okay, stop that and then start this again. Just that bluesy music was so great to hear. You just couldn't help but just kind of like groove to it. It was like, all right.
Totally.
So,
I know who I'm looking forward to seeing.
All right, who is it?
Wanda Jackson. I wonder if she's going to be they're going to introduce her, because I know she dated Elvis in the 50s.
Okay.
So I wonder if Wanda Jackson is known as the Queen of Rockabilly, but I don't think she was signed to Sun, or if it was for a short period of time. I may be wrong about that, but she's known like now as the Queen of Rockabilly. So and she's got a very maybe we should play one of her songs, because she's got such a like froggy. Some people like to rock. She's got like such a froggy voice, but I love her. She's still alive too.
Yeah.
So we'll get her and Jerry Lee Lewis in the studio.
Yeah, definitely. Only in our hopes and dreams. Well, I guess with that being said, I'm really excited for this series. I am already hooked after the pilot, the second episode. I'm just ready for what's going to happen next and what more history we're going to be introduced to. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will make sure you catch us next week. Again, Tamra, where can they find you?
I'm Tamra Brown. You can find me on Twitter at BrownTamra.
And I'm Allie Nasta. You can find me on Twitter at Allie Nasta and on Instagram at Allie Girl. See you guys next week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.